Good evening. At least 200 people have been killed and hundreds injured in a series of bomb attacks in Sri Lanka, and 5 Britons are believed to be among the dead. The explosions were targeted at churches during the Easter services and at some luxury hotels. The attacks took place in the capital Colombo and in Negombo and in Batticaloa on the east coast. One of the first places to be targeted in Colombo was St Anthony's Shrine, which is a very popular site for worshippers there. And 3 of the city's major hotels were also hit, the Kingsbury, the Shangri-La and the Cinnamon Grand, followed by 2 further explosions on the outskirts of Colombo. 8 people have been arrested so far. The Sri Lankan Prime Minister says there may have been prior information about a possible attack. Our South Asia correspondent Yogita reports now from Colombo.
This is where people had gathered to pray. But a bomb ripped through the peace of Easter Sunday. Dozens were killed here at St Anthony's Shrine in Colombo. This amateur video is believed to show the moment when the explosion occurred.
I heard the explosion and then the roof fell on us. We took the children and ran out from the rear door. But when I came to the hospital, I saw my brother-in-law and son on the ground.
At around the same time, an explosion took place here in this Catholic-dominated town just north of the capital, Colombo, at a church which is just down this street. We're not allowed to go past this point right now because of security reasons, but this is believed to have been the deadliest of all the bombings. A church in eastern Sri Lanka was also attacked. Families rushed to hospitals looking for loved ones. For hundreds, that search ended in heartbreak. Sri Lanka is home to more than 1 million Christians, a community that's been left shaken.
I also like to ask the government to hold a very impartial, strong inquiry and find out who is responsible behind this act, and also to punish them mercilessly.
3 luxury hotels in Colombo were also targeted, popular with tourists. Many foreign travellers are among those killed, and 5 British citizens have also lost their lives. Investigators have been searching for evidence. A guest staying on the 25th floor of this hotel, the Shangri-La, described what happened.
We could hear 2 loud bangs and the entire room was shaking. I could see that a lot of guests were being taken to different hospitals. There were casualties both for the hotel staff and the guests.
For many, a holiday has turned into a nightmare. 20-year-old Jason Allen is from America. He's being treated for his injuries. Security forces raided a house where they believed some of those involved in the attack were hiding. 3 policemen died. Several people have been arrested in connection with the bombings.
We must also look into why adequate precautions were not taken in this respect. But first and foremost, we have to ensure that terrorism does not lift its head in Sri Lanka.
A curfew is in place across the country. Security has been heightened at churches, hotels and the airport, among other places. Since its bloody civil war ended 10 years ago, it's the deadliest day Sri Lanka has seen.
Well, let's go live to Colombo tonight, and Yogita is there for us. Yogita, give us the latest on what's going on, and indeed the latest on the investigation itself.
Hugh, just as we landed here in Colombo, we weren't let out of the airport, no one was being allowed inside, and it's only later that we learned that the area was cordoned off because they had actually found an improvised explosive device at the airport which was disposed of. This was told to us by a military spokesman later. That's why the area remains extremely tense. We've been to a few churches in this area, which is Negombo, where one of the attacks happened. Heavy military presence there on the road outside the airport, also outside hotels and hospitals, of course, which are coping to treat the injured. We've been told that there are at least 36 foreign nationals who've died in this attack, people from the UK, the US, Denmark, the Netherlands, India as well, and Turkey, but many are still to be identified. What we do know is that several arrests have been made in the case, but the government hasn't given any information so far on that. The Prime Minister, though, has said that there might have been prior information about this attack, and it will be investigated as to why no one acted upon that. So far, no group or no individuals have claimed responsibility for this attack.
Yogita, thanks very much again for the update there in Colombo. Yogita Limaya, correspondent there at the scene. And as we've heard, and as Yogita was saying, 8 people have been arrested, but we still don't know who was behind these attacks. Sri Lanka has seen a decade of relative calm since the brutal civil war, which ended back in May of 2009. Our diplomatic correspondent, Caroline Hawley, looks at what might have led to these attacks.
Sri Lanka's no stranger to violence, to civilian suffering, but this is completely different to anything it's seen before. Christians now mourning en masse after they'd come together to celebrate and pray. For almost 3 decades, the country was at war, a civil war between the government and Tamil Tigers that killed tens of thousands of people. But 10 years ago, that conflict came to an end, and since then, it's enjoyed a relative calm. This is how Sri Lanka would like to be known, for its beautiful beaches. Tourism is vital to its economy, but there have been simmering political and intercommunal tensions. Last year, Buddhist mobs attacked Muslim properties, and Christians too have complained of being intimidated by hardline Buddhists.
Inter-religious and inter-ethnic violence is not new, it's something that has occurred. However, I think what's significant about today's attack is the scale of the attacks that we've seen, the coordination that took place, and the fact that luxury hotels in Colombo, where foreigners frequently stay, were targeted.
We still don't know who is behind today's attacks. Despite the arrests made, no finger of blame has been pointed yet, and no group has come forward to say it carried out the bombings. The vast majority of victims are Sri Lankans, but the UK is now scrambling for news of British citizens caught in the carnage.
Obviously, our High Commissioner is working on this with his team in the embassy in Colombo, working around the clock, and we're trying to gather as much information as we can about this. There's a crisis centre that's been set up. And there is an emergency helpline on the gov.uk website for anyone who has concerns about friends or relatives who may be holidaying in Sri Lanka.
The Sri Lankan government has warned that hardline groups could exploit the aftermath of these horrific attacks to stoke communal tensions. It's appealing for calm as condemnation continues to pour in from around the world. Caroline Hawley, BBC News.
Well, the Pope has also condemned the attacks in Sri Lanka, describing them as cruel violence. Speaking at his annual Easter Day address at the Vatican, Pope Francis said that he stood by the victims of the attacks, saying that Christians had been hit by mourning and by pain. Our religion editor Martin Bashir has the latest.
St. Peter's had been transformed into a vast garden of flowers as Christians gathered to celebrate the resurrection of Jesus. But as news of the attacks in Sri Lanka reached the Vatican, the Pope's traditional Easter message was altered to acknowledge the unfolding tragedy.
I heard of the serious attacks in Sri Lanka today with great pain and sadness that on Easter Sunday have brought mourning and suffering. I would like to express my closeness and affection to the Christian community, struck while it was gathered in prayer, and to all the victims of the cruel violence.
At Canterbury Cathedral, Archbishop Justin Welby condemned the attacks.
The will to power leads to the murder of innocents in Sri Lanka. The utterly despicable destruction that on this holiest of days seeks to challenge the reality of the risen Christ, to say that darkness will conquer,
that our choice is surrender or death.
The Queen, who is 93 today, also attended an Easter service at St George's Chapel, Windsor. And in Paris, worshippers were invited to attend Mass at Saint Eustache Church on the other side of the river to Notre Dame.
C'est sélectionnaire, cette parole de Dieu.
During the service, Archbishop Michel Aupetit handed over a Bible rescued by firefighters from Notre Dame.
Merci encore.
A sober moment on what is normally a joyous day in the Christian calendar. Martin Bashir, BBC News.